Good evening, everybody. This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio Sinoland on the beaches of D-Day Normandy. And tonight I am going to go 9 hours back into time to the wonderful province of British Columbia in Canada. And I'm with Jerome Irwin. How are you doing, Jerome?
Very good. Thanks, Jeff.
You know, it's funny how I have met so many fascinating people in my journalism and writing career, and people will tell me, "Hey, you should check this guy. You should check this guy out, and this gal out." And some people will reach out to me and contact me. And Jerome reached out and contacted me, and I got on his website and I said, "Wow, this guy's a real writer." And he's got books, and he's got a CD, and I was quite impressed. And he was sending me an article or two, and so I said, "Hey man, let's get together and have a nice discussion for the fans and talk about your work and introduce people to your website." So let me tell you a little bit about him. This is his bio. Jerome Irwin is a Canadian-American writer who once upon a time in university was a criminology student while working in one of America's local police departments. For decades, Irwin has especially sought to call world attention to problems of environmental degradation and unsustainability caused by a host of environmental, ecological, spiritual issues that exist between the conflicting world philosophies of indigenous and non-indigenous peoples. Irwin is author of the book, The Wild Gentle Ones, A Turtle Island Odyssey, a spiritual odyssey among the native peoples of North America that has led to numerous articles pertaining to Ireland's Fenian movement, Native Peoples Dakota Access Pipeline Resistance Movement, AIPAC, Israel, and the U.S. Congress anti-BDS movement, the historic battle for Palestine and siege of Gaza, as well as the many violations constantly being waged by industrial, corporate, military propaganda interests against the world's collective soul. Amen to all that. I will include his email. I'll include his website. I'll include also the link to where you can buy his books and CD. So anyway, welcome to the show, Jerome.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Jeff.
Hey, listen, please tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became aware that what you were taught to believe in school about Western civilization was not true.
Well, this war that's going on now in Ukraine has, caused a lot of us, I guess, to really rethink the whole 9 yards of what our life has been about, and that's what I launched into when I started writing, because I think I've always been kind of driven to write about this because of my background, being from Irish and Tyrolean heritage. When the great Celtic migration was happening across Europe in the days back, and one segment went to Ireland, and the other segment ended up in the Tyrolean Alps of what is now northern Italy, which a lot of people call the autonomous area because they're fierce tribes people up there who like their autonomy. I thought, gee, I've got a lot of interesting stuff going on, because I knew that my Irish ancestors were part of the wild geese, which was a part of the Irish who were, tribesmen like everywhere, indigenous peoples. They were kind of like resisting the imperialists who came into their territory. And so I had that background. I happen to have a father who was a storyteller, and so he would tell us a lot of these stories. And so I knew I had that kind of heritage. And so I thought, okay. And then I got caught up as a young guy in the military, and then out of that, I was invited to go be part of the CIA. and I went to the CIA for a very short time, because when I got into the CIA, it didn't take me long to figure what side is up and what side is down. and I knew that this was not my place to be, because I thought I'm going to be murdered with these cutthroat guys, because they were pretty brutal. Some of my instructors, the war stories they told me, they were old OSS people, you know.
Wow.
They were old OSS people, and so they had a lot of war stories. And I thought, is this really my journey? And I thought, no, I don't think this is my journey. So I backed out. And then when I backed out, I thought, okay. And I got back into kind of my ancestors and knowledge, and thought, okay, I need to somehow reconnect to the land and to the indigenous people here, even though I can't connect necessarily with my ancestors in the old world, in Ireland and Tyrol, northern Italy. So I wanted to connect with the indigenous peoples of both Canada and the United States. And boy, that sent me on a journey at that point, because I was at that point in my life and in the life of the world. We've gone through how many wars in the world, and we've gone through World War I, World War II, and another 270 wars, and so we were up to our necks in wars. And so when I decided to go with the Indians, it wasn't difficult for me to do that, because as a young kid, I would listen to my dad's stories about his indigenous ancestors, and then I started kind of like thinking about the Indians, because I didn't know who they were. I didn't have any contact with them, and so I had my Indian soldiers, and in fact, they're still there. I'm going to turn this around, and maybe you can see them up on the ledge there. Those are the original guys that I played with as a kid, some of my spirit people. These are kind of some of the spirit people that I shared time with as a kid. And they became like tape recorders for my stories and my imagination and things of that sort. And so I had a million of those stories, but I wanted to see real indigenous peoples. So because I had gone into the CIA, at first I thought Peace Corps. Like, I know you were in Peace Corps. And so a lot of us were in Peace Corps at that time, because that was the altruistic thing to do, and that was the good thing to do for the planet. And like so many others, we all went in the Peace Corps. But unfortunately, right in the middle of my training, Peace Corps informed me that they found out about my CIA connections, and they said, unfortunately, we got to let you go, because obviously, if someone finds out that you're in the former CIA, they think, yeah, right, yeah, former bullshit on that. And so they said, well, sorry, we're going to have to give you a pass. So then I thought, okay, where do I turn to now? And so I turned to Vista as a Vista volunteer.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And that was Johnson's, I consider that President Johnson one of his best moves, because what he did was essentially he opened up a whole lot of young Americans to see America from the ground floor, the ascent, you might say, of what America was all about. And it was a steep learning curve for a lot of us, because we saw the real America, wherever we went, whether it was the Appalachians, whether it was, with black people in the ghettos, whether it was Indians, we were all over the place. And so I, from the get-go, they said, well, you can't guarantee where you're going to be. But I said, look, I'm going here because I want to be with Native peoples. I want to learn from them. And if you don't send me there, I'll quit anyway and go on my own. So anyways, it turns out they said, okay, we're going to send you the Dakota reservation in South Dakota.
Oh, wow, okay.
And I said, that's great, I'm there, And at that point in time, that was when the hotbed of what was going on in South Dakota and the with A movement, it was just on the verge of opening up. And I was on the ground floor of that. And so I was seeing that all from the get-go. And that, boy, the learning curve then went up astronomical, because I was meeting these elders and these radical people who had strong feelings about a lot of stuff. And so I was like a tape recorder. I thought, I'm just going to keep recording in my mind all these things and all these elders and every damn thing they're saying. This is a rare opportunity, you know.
Wow, you lucky
And
guy.
that was just fun, because that was then at the moment when I went from the Peace Corps in South Dakota, Vista in South Dakota. A lot of us went to the San Francisco, because that's where Alcatraz was being planned. And so we were part of that whole Alcatraz statement.
Occupation, yeah.
Made to the world. And then, of course, that was a gathering place of the best of the best among the indigenous radicals and activists. And it was like it was a hotbed of intellectual ferment, you know. And wow. And then I thought, okay, it goes for the mill for my book, you know. And one thing led to another, and I started meeting all these different Native peoples, and then that took me all over Canada, United States, meeting with other Native peoples about what they were doing. And then I eventually ended up in Canada working with some of the really cutting edge Native peoples up there, First Nation peoples, who were, in fact, I was part of a group that took over the first school from the Catholic Church and made it into a native school. We were the first. And so it was all kinds of stuff like that going on, you know. And so then one thing led to another, and that's where I ended up staying in Canada. And, you know, there's just been a big learning curve going on ever since.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I envy you.
I was lucky. I envy myself, you know.
Yeah, that's incredible. Do you mind me asking how old you are? Just to kind of put things in perspective. 82?
Yeah.
Wow, you sure look healthy as for 82. That's impressive.
It's the spiritualness of my ancestors, you know.
And well, you know, this was my second question, which I wrote before I knew you, and I didn't know anything about your background other than what I could glean from your website. But you know, much of your work does seem steeped in First Nation cultures, and what experiences or ideas attracted you to their civilization?
Well, you know, like when I think, you know, like when I came into this world, as a lot of us do, you know, it's a mystery when we come into this world, and I think it's like a spinning wheel in the gambling casino. You know, that when that wheel goes around and around and around, whatever those little genes are between your mom and your dad has infinite possibilities of stopping somewhere. And when they stop somewhere, they might stop at an ancestor that was like 1,000 years ago and whatnot, who was some great character. And you inherited all of that. And it might not have anything to do with your mom and dad, but you've inherited it from your ancestors, and luck of the draw, you got what you got, you know. And so I suddenly realized that I was being driven by some kind of a spiritualness in my ancestors, because when I started mixing with First Nation people and Native Americans, and I got involved in their ceremonies and I got involved in their dances, it felt like, to me, like I was coming home. That's the way I put it. I was coming home.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because it was touching bases with my own ancestry. Yeah. And that was where the learning curve was too, because then, of course, at that time, there was a lot of hostility, and there still is, with First Nation people and Native Americans towards non-Indians. So I was running up against heavy flack from a lot, and in dangerous situations too, especially during the AIM thing, when some of those guys were loaded with guns, and they didn't like any outsiders, and I wasn't getting involved with some of the religious ceremonies that really pissed a lot of them off. But the elders saw my heart. You know, the elders that I was with could see my heart, and they said, "You're good. You know, stay with us. Keep doing that." And so that's how I led to it. But it was just again, you know, following my nose and following my heart. You know.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
What a unique life. Well, tell us about your 2 books and your compact disc.
Well, I did 2 books. I did it on my own. I paid for it on my own. I worked, you know, as a teacher. I was in San Francisco working in the Black Ghetto in San Francisco in Martin Luther King School there, and that's another tradition. That's a beautiful tradition. But I would go to school during the day, but the only time I could write was at night. So I basically wouldn't get any sleep. I'd go through the entire night writing, collecting my thoughts, putting that together, and then I'd go out to school in the morning. But that was just my life for a number of years as I put these together. But this is one book. I don't know if you can see it, but
absolutely.
I designed that, and all the elements that are in the story are in the picture there. And that's volume 1. I mean, that's volume 2, and this is volume 1. And so they're all the different elements that are in the story. Some are animal, human, some are spiritual, some are elder people. And so that became the driving force for my life for a long time. It hasn't gone anywhere. You know, it hasn't gone into any kind of economical success. In fact, it's hardly been read. But, you know, I got it, and it's my love of my life, and I did it. And then in terms of that, I created a mock-up of a journal that I wanted to also make available to the readers that would that has a lot of like various ancient symbols in it. But in there, I have a lot of questions that I want to put to the reader, like such as, where does your life begin? You know, what are the songs and wisdoms of your Odyssey's early beginnings? Your own Odyssey, if the reader is thinking about that. And what's your grandparents' legacy to you? These are all basic questions that I wanted to put to the readers. What's the legacy of your true birthright? What do you consider the legacy of your true birthright? Or stories of how I first experienced the struggle of Turtle Island and its native consciousness, you know. So I'm really encouraging the reader, stories of those who have helped me make contact with the indigenous spirit of life. So that's what this journal, it's a mock-up, stories of how I felt the clash of the light and dark forces in my life. Or another one, the way I honor the great turtle's heartbeat. You know, and in the books, I have at the beginning of every chapter, I have an epigram and an epigraph. And the epigram and the epigraph focuses on that sort of thing. For example, I'm just turning to where did your life's Odyssey begin? And that's one question I put to the reader, and then I talk about where my life's Odyssey began. And I have as an epigram, I have an epigram and an epigraph. And this particular one has to do with Gary Snyder, famous writer. A lot of people know him. He wrote the book Turtle Island and other collections. He's quite a guy. And he starts off in saying, in light of 1992, we're here to celebrate the beginning of the next 500 years for the Western Hemisphere. I'm part of the first generation willing to leave behind European, African, or Asian identities and enter fully into being as inhabitants of Turtle Island. And that was what Gary Steyer, he set the stage for that. And then that's what but I have these kind of epigrams and epigraphs. And this one here I call the Song of the Turtle, which I kind of came up with myself, which I've got my Celtic boron here.
Oh, wow.
I got my Celtic boron and the boron and my drumstick. And this is a story in itself, because this drumstick came to me when I was a little kid. I was traveling with my family across the deserts of Nevada, and we came across this old man sitting on the side of the road with a blanket out, and he had a bunch of his things that he carved and things he had on the side of the road. So I stopped and I went to him, and he kept looking at me, and I kept looking at him, and I saw this tomahawk that he made with just a wooden hatchet top and a handle. But it was the handle that really attracted me, and it's the handle I'm holding in my hand now. And I said to him, I said, how much is that? And I didn't have enough money. I said, I don't have enough money. And he just looked at me and he goes, how much you got? And I said, I don't know, like $2 or something like that. He goes, yeah, here you go. You know, I didn't even know what that was about, but I knew I had to have that wooden tomahawk for some reason. Fast forward to an adult, and I'm thinking of, like, now I've met Indian people. I know a little bit about their drum, and I thought, I got to come up with my own drum. And I thought, oh yeah, the Irish, they got a boron. My sister's got a boron, you know. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to start devising my own ceremonies. So I came up with the idea, I'm going to use that stick from that tomahawk that old man gave me as the handle of a drumstick. And the red beater of the top of the thing, I took it from my wife's wedding dress. I thought I want something spiritual to use on the drum. So
cool.
I took a piece of her wedding dress. And then the handle is red cloth. And I thought, okay, I want to have a grip on that red cloth. And that was when I went through a ceremony, a Vision Quest ceremony with Lakota in South Dakota, where I went up on the hill for 3 days and 3 nights with Joe Thunderhawk. He was my mentor. And so I went to what they call Hambalechia, which is a ceremonial day where you go up there by yourself for 3 days and 3 nights, and you fast and you meditate, and you look for a vision. And around your altar are little tobacco pouches. And this red cloth was part of the tobacco cloth that was used for my sacred medal.
That is an incredible drumstick. That's what a story.
Yeah, and so and here's in that chapter I just showed you. This is that opening chapter. It's like the Song of the Turtle, and I kind of came up with this myself.
Please.
Thump, 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 thump. The turtle's heart beats thump, thump. Who are you supposed to be? What are you supposed to do while the turtle's heart beats thump, 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 thump? Heal! Oh, nations come and nations go as the turtle's heart beats thump, thump. Who are you supposed to be? What are you supposed to be as the turtle's heart beats thump, thump? Heal my beat, heal my beat, says the turtle's heart as it thumps, thumps. way-oh, hey, way-oh, hey-oh, way, way, way-oh, hey, way-oh, hey-oh, way.
Bravo.
Well, that's the song I came up with. I sing, a lot of times, different times, and
Impressive. Unbelievable. Well, I tell you what I'll do. I'll send you my trilogy, and you can exchange my China trilogy, and we can exchange your 2 books and your CD, and you can send me those, and we can do a trade. How's that sound? 3 books for 2 books and a CD. Does that sound like a deal?
Yeah, I'll send you both volumes.
All right. Well, listen, you wrote an article recently about the state of world affairs, and then you sent me another one, and I'm going to let you pick whichever one you want me to publish on my website. And the one that I read is "War in Ukraine Tops 21st Century's Chart of Human Idiocy and Madness."
That's a good one. Yeah.
Please tell us about it, and I will include it again on my website. And so just tell us about that article and what you think is going on.
Well, it's kind of interesting because as I started writing about the war in Ukraine, suddenly I realized the wall that was there, that a lot of people who were trying to speak the truth are finding that solid wall in their face. And I'm thinking what happened when I started writing this. Suddenly I found that friends that I thought were close friends didn't talk to me anymore. If I sent them an article, that particular article, whatever one, they never responded to it. They never mentioned it. I thought, gee, I thought I poured myself out, and we kept it pretty balanced. Then I said, my relatives stopped talking to me, and the relatives wouldn't even respond.
Terrible.
To me, wouldn't respond to me. And then I started talking with other writers, and we were finding the same thing. If we were true to ourselves and true to each other, we were finding the same resistance. And I was thinking, my God, the propaganda is so strong and so immense that it's shocking that in this world that we live in right now, it's that controlled and it's that organized. And suddenly I started thinking of all these characters who are involved in the war, whoever they are, on either side, and they're dissolute people. They're violent, dissolute people who have they have their own agenda, but it has nothing to do with the planet, with the human life. They dispose of the planet and they dispose of human life like it was nothing. And America and those people are happy to see, as they even say themselves, we're in this war to the last Ukrainian. I'm thinking, think about that. They're in it for the until the last Ukrainian, and I thought that's about right because they've never given a shit, and all these big guys who are doing all this stuff in the world never have given a shit for the people themselves, And as oddly, this is interesting because just last night when I turned on my computer, a mentor colleague of mine, who actually I'm not going to mention his name, but he's a professor emeritus of international affairs, and he sent me a poem that he knew I was going to be speaking, on the program here, and he sent the email and it says, "Why bother?" And here's what he sent me. It's the still of night. Not a creature is stirring, except for one furtive soul. a dimly lit page of the slim volume, a collection of poetry composed by a brave Russian, Yuri Yevtushenko. Thus, the clandestine reading. Thus, this clandestine reading. And the one he sent me was Talk by Yevtushenko. I'm going to get my old glasses on for this one. You're a brave man, they tell me. I'm not. Courage has never been my quality. Only I thought disproportionate. So to decode myself as often did, no foundations trembled. My voice no more than laughed at pompous falsity. I did not no more than write, never denounced. I left nothing out I had thought about. Defended who deserved it. Put a brand on the untalented. The ersatz writers doing what anyone had to be done. And now they press to tell me that I'm brave. How sharply our children will be ashamed. Taking at least their vengeance for these horrors. Remembering how in so strange a time, common integrity could look like courage.
That's a great point. I don't know the poet at all, but that's a great poem.
That's a great Yevtushenko. He was the man. He was a man, speaker of truth.
Wow, I'll have to check him out after later because I've never heard of him before.
Yeah, Yevtushenko's the man. Because you know what, he's what we need more of. We need more of these guys speaking the truth. You know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, what other projects do you have in the pipeline? You're very creative and spiritual, and what you got cooking on the stove?
I just kind of follow my nose, basically. You know, I don't look too far ahead. I just kind of like follow the nose, and because at the same time, you know, I have this spiritual little property here, and there's a lot of upkeep that I have to do on that, and so just to maintain that as a gift to the community, because there are many people who come by, especially from the old countries, especially from Eastern Europe, and they come and they see the house and they look at it and they go, oh, this is just like my little babushka's house, and, you know, and they reminds me of my grandmother's house in the old country, and so I know that it creates a spiritual center, you know, for a lot of people. And so that's my gift, basically just creating this little sacred spot here, which my wife and I both consider it our sacred ground. And we're here as the caretakers of this sacred ground, you know, and that's what we do. And in the meantime, when I see what's going on in the world, maybe a little bit like Yevtushenko, I'm not going to put myself in the same class as him, but you know, you just look around and you see what has to be said, and you say it, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, you told me that in your books you have an entire chapter on your house, and so I'll be looking forward to reading that when we swap books.
Okay, good.
So, well, listen, Jerome, this has just been a wonderful conversation, and I'm very impressed with you, and very impressed with all that you've done. And by the way, what country were you going to go to in the Peace Corps? I just was curious. Where were you supposed to go?
I was actually slotted to go to the Truk Atoll in the South Pacific.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. which would have been a
Incredible.
different journey in itself. Because I was learning all about native navigation, and there's amazing people down there who have the ability to travel in the open ocean without a compass and just following the stars and plumbing the currents of the oceans. They know exactly where they're at every second of every minute. And I wanted to learn from them. I thought that would be a wonderful thing to have that kind of sense. But it's the same sense that indigenous peoples have on the land. They have the same ability to get their bearings and do things. I was with an old Indian guy up in British Columbia here who you could just head out into the bush with him. And in the bush where you couldn't see the sky, you couldn't see the sun, you couldn't get a reckoning from the sun or anything where you were at. Yet he knew every second where he was at. And we were picking wild pine mushrooms. And we had so many wild pine mushrooms that we couldn't carry them anymore. So he said, I'm going to leave them right here in the bush. And I said, oh, what are you going to do? Leave them there? He goes, yeah, I'll put them right up against this tree. I said, what? I said, you're not going to be able to find these again in this thick forest? Yeah, okay. So for hours after that, we wandered aimlessly, picking wild mushrooms through the entire forest. This was a Lillooet man from Mount Currie, British Columbia. And this guy was amazing. And so anyway, after hours and hours and hours of going through the bush, he said, oh, guys, I guess we got to go back because we're working for a Japanese company that had dropped us off by helicopter, and they were going to come back and pick the mushrooms up and take them away. So he said, we better get back to the clearing. And I said, oh, yeah, okay. And believe me, it was a real journey to get back to that spot. But he said, oh, yeah, we got to go get the mushrooms first. And I said, what? You're going to find those mushrooms in this thick forest? You know? And so anyway, we walk, and he'd say to me every once in a while, which way now? And I'd say, I think it's to the left. Ah! And he'd go to the right. And then we'd go another couple of miles, and he'd say, where we're at now? Where are those damn mushrooms? Where should we go? I think we'll go over there to the right. No, it's the left. And so after wandering forever, and then suddenly we're coming out, and there's a shaft of light that comes through the forest onto this spot in the floor of the forest with sphagnum moss on it. And there's his backpack with the mushrooms leaning up against the tree. I got down on my hands and knees, and I went, Allah, Allah, oh. And he said, oh, you white guys, you have no skills at all.
Unbelievable. Well, that's a great way to end our discussion, and I hope we stay in touch, and I hope to come visit you someday in BC, and if you ever make it over to Europe, would love to meet you. And
certainly will.
And after I read your books, maybe we can get back together again and talk about it more.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Look forward to your site too. Your site is quite an eye opener. It's education for me.
Well, good. This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio, Sign of Land, and I've had the wonderful opportunity of spending 40 minutes with Jerome Irwin, who's in British Columbia, and who has obviously led a very enlightened and special life. So thank you so much for being on the show tonight, Jerome.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Peace with you.
All right, bye-bye. This is how we do it in Asia. How do Indians, how do natives say goodbye? What sign do they give?
One last song, yeah. Hey, a new day. Here comes the dawning of a new day. Our lives in circles round us. Hey, oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, hey. Hey, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, hey, hey. Oh, hey, oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, hey, hey.
Wow, is that a goodbye song?
Good son.
Is that a song that they sing to say goodbye?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, listen, then I will respond with this, and we'll sign out. And so good to meet you and talk to you, Jerome. You're really special. Do you want to stand up just enough to show the people your T-shirt? Yeah, with the,
This is
with
my
the,
polar bear claw, by the way.
it's a polar bear claw.
Polar bear
Wow.
claw. Yeah.
And that Homeland Security fighting terrorism since 1492. That's wonderful. All right, Jerome. Great to
Cheers.
talk to you. All right, talk to you later. You want to sit down so we can see your face one last time?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jeff. See ya.
Bye-bye.